हेलो एवरीवन, वी हैव टू डिस्कस अबाउट दैट मेंस आंसर राइटिंग। प्रश्न देख लेते हैं। नंबर थर्ड, can mural painting be considered and one of the greatest tradition of the painting of the ancient world and discuss with example. A murals is either large pictures and painted or either affixed and directly on other wall or ceilings. The existence of mural painting in India and dated dates and back from the 2nd century BC and to the 8th to 10th century AD. Yes, mural painting can be considered one of the greatest tradition of painting and the different period in India and gave rise to the different styles of the mural painting in India. There are more than 20 locations and around the Indias and where the mural and where the available. They are mainly found in the natural scapes and the rock cut chambers. The painting follow other theme and the most common beings Hindu, Buddhist and Jain in India. Shows continuity and the Ajanta caves painting is where the depicted by the various kingdoms and like the Mauryas, Songas and Vaktakas and the Chalukyas empires and murals under the Palwas and Pandyas and Cholas king and Palyas paintings. Palwas and painting aid the Kanchipuram temples, where the patronized and by the Palwas king and the Rajsimha and Pandyas. Fragmented layers of the of painting in the Tirumala Puram caves and the Jaina caves aid the Sitan. Shitan vassals are some of the surviving examples, and Chola painting are seen in the Nar, Tamalai, and the most important and are those in the Brihadeshwara's temples. The paintings show the narrations and aspect related to the Lord Shivas and Shiva is Kailas and Shiva is the Tri and the Purantaka. Vijayanagara and murals and in the Hampi and the Biru and the Pakshas temple painting and that the show event and from the dynasty and show the religious life and the common theme of thus the paintings ranges and from the Jataka's story to the life of the Buddhas and the contemporary event and social life. To elaborate decorative patterns of flora and fauna, the mural painting in the Ellora caves are related to all the three religions Buddhism, Jainism, and the Hinduism. So, the materialist as well as other spiritualistic aspect and wise the Ajantas and others the painting and show the religious and spiritual aspects and the Bhag caves paintings are the materialistic rather than the spiritualistic and different styles. Raghav Ravan and Chaya rock and shelters painting aid the Irans and located in the Odisha styles. Odisha shows unsigned and the fresco and painting on other rock shelters. Earliest example of the mural painting in the Bhimbetka caves and the Paleolithic, Mesolithic and Neolithic period. Unique Kerala murals and the Thar thematically painting and from the Kerala stand apart and most of the narrations are based on episodes and from the Hindu mythology and which were the populars in Kerala's the artist and seems to have the derived and sources from oral traditions and local versions of the Ramayana and the Mahabharatas for painted narration around the world. Mural date back to the 30,000 BC and forms the earliest painting in the Chevat and Caps in France and the largest numbers of the painting are from the Egyptians and Tom and the Pompeii in the 100 BC and AD 79 and the Minoan places 1700 and 1600 BC. Fresco paintings are the earlier method used. It come and from the Italy and come from the world phrase and the Roman wall painting dated the back to the 3rd and century BC and can be the found in the homes and small residential building and from Britain and to the Egypt and from the Pannonian and Hungary to the Morocco. The mural painting in Egypt में पाई गई थी. ये है mural painting. Mural paintings like मुराल पेंटिंग कैसी है? एक आदमी है दिखाया गया, इसमें इसकी गर्दन है एंड पैर हैं और ये एक फुग्गा लिए हुए दिखाया गया है और ये नीचे आँख की आकृति है। Conclusion. Mural painting is the revolutionaries and proved that wall and the ceilings do not have to the pain, and murals are the imperative in the world of the art because and they brings art to the public and the make people more aware of art. Additional detail. Ajanta cave painting, Badhami and caves painting and Roman and paintings. How is the diversities in India and culture the reflected through it is the music's explain introduction. India's culture is one of the most unsigned culturals presented in the world and culture pattern reflected the resigns and various. There is the immense varieties in the Indian culture as it is the blend of various cultures and different the religious caste and the religious follow there's the tradition and cultures, and thus there is variation in art, the architecture, dance forms and theater forms and musics, and Indian culturals and diversities reflected through its music, its musics and religion. Hindustani and the Carnatic in northern and India's the Persians and Mughals influences began the creating Hindustani music, and whereas the Carnatic music is comparatively and touchables and developed on the original lines, and Carnatic Sangeet has the developed in the South Indian states of the Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh and the Karnatakas, and Hindustani music has the various and the gharanas and likes the knowledge Lucknow, Jaipur, and Kiranas, Agra, etc. Carnatic music has the homogeneous and Hindustani music has the heterogenics and Indian tradition. Indian the traditions religious and also the formed the basis for some also basis for some. Dashkathiya's music and dance from the Odissas and mainly the tale and the mythological logical stories primarily about the Lord Shivas and but also others god as well as the Pillu and the Pattu. Pillu Pattu and is other musical story. Is other musical storytelling method performance in the Tamil Nadu and Kerala. It is the narrated story connected with the local gods and goddesses. Sankirtana's folk music is Assam. Sankita's folk music in Assam promotions by the Vaishnavas community and festivals according to festival communities and according to the festivals and certain regions also the developed different music styles, and Pai songs from the Madhya Pradesh are the sung during the festival especially, and that the fall during the rainy seasons, and Besant Geet song are the sung during the Besant and the Panchami and festivals, and the Graha war dance, and the dance forms have originated and from the different parts of India as per the local tradition, and this is the true in the case of the folk dance, and which is the emergent from the local traditions and to the respective and state ethnics or the geographic regions. Dandiya's Raz and is other traditions, music, dance and forms in the Gujarat and is the associated and with the scenes on of the Holi and the Leelas of Krishnas and Radha. Song of the Chai dance, Mizoram. Helim Lau song are dancing. Helim Lau song are dancing are dancing song of the Nagaland and the Natare and the achievement of aged pupils in the past battles and through this the forms of music and dramas and the puppetry also the included elements of music to enhances the audios and visuals experience and to the depicts and the cultural richness customs and the tradition style of the marriage and ceremonies and birth ceremonies and vary from the regions to the resigns in other state and thought out the nation and this is also the reflected in the forms of song and music and that are the performance during the such ceremonies. Obi is other form of music and from the Maharashtra and Goa and sung by the women and they are the usually written for the marriages and the pregnancies and lullabies and for the children's. Banaban Banaban is the folk music and from the Jammu and Kashmir sung and during the wedding ceremonies and tribal diversities and there the tradition song in the song in other tribal societies are the mostly functionals and the often have the sanctities of either ceremony rites and for the instant the song which either accompany the event of the life cycles and birth the initiatives and marriage and death. Similarly the agricultural songs in accompany and the burnings and preparations of the field and the paintings and trans painting harvesting etc. Assam bihu and song were the performed during the crop plantations and conclusion great and the diversities of the music in India is other direct and manifestations of the diversities and fragmentations of the population in terms of race religions language and other the aspects of culture. Do you think digital media and smartphone have the affected Indian and society negatively argued and by the giving situation institute illustration. India will have 1 million smartphone users and why the 216 and the rurals in areas driving the sales of the internet enables phone according to the devotees stated they enables e-reach the digital service to the far achievement of the country to have also the created the maintain negative issues in the society and bodies. Digital medias include the software, digital images and digital videos and videos, games and web pages and websites. And social media's digital data and the database digital audios such as the MP3 and the elections documents and the electronic and the negative impact of the digital medias and the smartphones adult and the children's both the buried and the skilled and even the kidnapped and using theirs the social and features and produce relationships and the scams occurs and when other criminals adopt a face of the India's and gain the victim sanctions and the false idealization and expectation and buy the product and follow the dietings and do to all the famous influences activities without the giving is it a the second thought. Local lack of the socials and emotional skills. The more times and you spend and looking at the scene of less times and spend the interestings in the person with others, this make it is the more difficult established impressioners connections and strong the relationships. Fake news example mob lynching and news and which is the spread through the more media and young children's and the adolescent addict and to the mobile game social medias. Economic impact. Unnecessary expenditures and smartphone will have other status symbols banning and either phone and currency. Online money fraud does include the online scams and spam identified them. Buying product online. Buying product online from yours the account and the without your knowledge identified spooking scams and pop up the alert. Physiological impact addictions to the response People post people post daily updated and connected on the social medias, and if they don't and get as the many likes as comment on their the friend, and they start feeling and useless and the worthless deciding and oneself the boards on the several likes and the commented on the social media healthy and fears of the missing outs, and the social medias is not and always the acute and often exaggerated versions of the reality, but smartphone affected younger minds and they get the sucked into the FMO health concept. Concentration difficulties imposed. Smartphone and the consistent argument check smartphone's screen has the resulted in the low and some grant may be the help focus student, and while the planning increase the mentals and levies, children prefer using the mobile phone and calculation even for small calculation instead of pen and papers due to the installed access to smartphone. Additionally to the much and smartphone use can the reduce student and thinking distributions and sleeps and the habits we get the influences in the checking social medias and feed forgotten. The disturbance and sleeping patterns sleeping habits we get the indulged. Weak eyesight and thus the devices and limits and blue light and which can the harms eyesight, and it is the started aid the its and screen for other long time, thus the lights harm the eyes and for other long duration affected learning and the comprehensive. With the advanced of the teaching and smartphone we can the read anything and on the go longer carried or the reach newspaper magazines books and etc. Researchers claims the children's after the better at the printed text from other digital. However, there are the few positions impact of the digital and medias and smartphones. Impact on the education. Smartphone provided other unique way to the improve the qualities of the education access and from the any parts of the world, and improvement communications and access in many the ways smartphones and are the great tools to the stay and to touch and with the pupils. Example business meeting events families and friends communications. Help in the emergency. Smartphone can be the essential tools in the case of and the emergency, and they are the quick and easy way to get in the contact and with the someone if you are in the need of help. Example GPS uses when the standard in other acknowledged place. Enables economic activity. There are many the business and which use and the social medias and for the promotions and the earning help us and the stay organized, and with the multitasked become the norms of the modern day life, and it is the often becomes the difficult to keep the track of the everything's. Example step count and digitally in the smartphones and increase the awareness and while the helping stay and connected and with the each others, and with the word mobilize phones and will help to stay to date and on the politicals and economically and social issues affected the world. Example can cross check and the flash news year list possibles. Conclusion it's time and to the overcome, and thus the negative affected of the smartphone and smart living are the less affected the life screens time and limitation for the both child and the kids, and for the social gatherings and indulging in hobbies are other few and methods to curb the smartphone use. Question number 6. Describe of any cultural and event. Describe any cultural events and the diversity in India. Read in the relative significant building other national identification. Diversities connected and collections different the among pupils and that the different and one or groups of pupils and from the anothers and India is considered is the mega culturally and diverse and existence of the various group for the providing a unique band of Indian life. Indian diversity, cultural elements of the diversities in India. Racial diversities. The racial diversity, Harvard and Risky and classifications the pupils of India into the seven and racial types, and there are the Turco-Indians and Indo-Aryans and the Scytho-Dravinians and Aryo-Dravinians and Mongol-to-Dravinians and Mongolians and the Dravinians, significant in the building of the national identity. Racial diversities help us recognize and respected way of being and that are know the necessaries and our the own and so that as we and the interacted and who the others and we can the world and bridge to the interest to trusted respected and understandings across the cultures. It helps dispel negatives and the stereotypes and the personals views about the different groups and the constitutional identities. Constitution guaranteed and certain the fundamental rights to all the civilization, all the citizens and the regarded of their the age, gender, class and the caste, religion, etc. Constitution and citizen regarded of theirs and ages and genders, class and the different festivals. The season of the spreading and the harvest in India and now by the many names. It is called the Gudi and Parmas in Maharashtra and Goa, and it is the popular as the Vaishakhi. In North India's the festivals is also called the Bihu in Assam and the Yagadi in Karnataka and the Pathandu in Tamil Nadu. Significant in building other national identity, festival contributed the immensely to feelings of social and cohesion. For example, the gift and contribution during the Diwali and the Jan's Christmas. Many celebration involve the community's elders sharing the stories and expression setting and template for mentioning unit among the families. Example storing during the nearest the cultures exchanges. The culture exchanges of view and the celebration but the social relation and the social communication. Social relation and the social communications and which is led to the unit among the peoples. Example the iftar and during the Ram Jana's body silence purified speech. Ram Janas and the common practice and being other sense of oneness. For example, by fasting the detoxifies the body silence and purified the speech and bringing test to the mind and the meditation text one deep into the one beings and help in the building's tolerance. The existence of various forms of the diverse and cultures in India has made and the example of tolerant celebrating the Ramajan and the Ganesh and the Chaturthi in the same land and road. Indian art form painting, theatres and performance and folk dances and theirs and theatre and sculptures and making the fairs in instruments and painting the theatre performance. Folk dances and theatre, the sculptures making the fairs and the instruments. Music and dances are the few examples of Indian art forms and significant in buildings. A national's identity, culture, and its the heritage reflected and shapes value and faith, the aspirations and theory why the theory defining other national identity of peoples. artist often explore the characteristic and that the determines ours the persons and social identity. They the contrasted in the sense of who and we are as the individuals and as a society or as other nations. And Indian customs and tradition in marriage is both an either social as well as the religious event in India. Different communities have theirs amongst the tradition and the customs of the soul meanings a marriage significant in building and the national identity. Marriage marriage is both other marriage is both other social as well as the religious events in India's and different the communities have their the own tradition and customs of the solemn meaning is a marriage and significance in building other national identity. Marriage is other divine unit of the different cultures and tradition. It is also and the important social constructions. Cultures and diversities. For example, diversities example accepting different and the festivals and food and the customs from the both grooms and bride and side intercaste and marriages and the interreligion marriages, and it is help in the acceptance and assimilations of different cultures and identities, which in terms and help in the building national identity. Language. India is home to other large and the numbers of language and that we cannot and find in any others countries, and thus the language and have the evolved over the centuries, and some are very the rares, and this diversities in that language and has the provided India with other colorful blend and fundamentals and unity and is found in the ideas and the themes and expressed in thus the language. Other the cultural element. Indian cinema and Indian musics and the Indian literatures and Indian dances and conclusion. Diversities is very the important for other country and like the India's if the unities and exist among the peoples and it is the becomes the impossible to the distinguished and the national and it's the peoples, and this help in the maintaining peace harmonies and prosperity in other country. Caste system in India is marked and by the continuity and the change and elucidated. Question number 7. Caste system in India is marked by the continuity and changes elucidated. Introduction. Caste can be defined and as other heredities and the indigenous groups and having other common names and common tradition occupations and commons culture and relatively and greed in the matters of the mobility and the dictatorshipness of the status and farming either singers and homogeneous community. However, it is not other static social concepts and but is marked and by the continuity and the changes in the caste system and trade and for intercaste marriages and purity of the bloods and was one of the main aims and of the caste system. As other result and intercaste marriages and were the socially and the forbidden and due to the economic and the social necessities, and intercaste marriages on the western lines and are the being performance at the increased and frequently challenges to the orthodox and the practices of the caste systems, and such as the child marriages and ban on the widows and remarriages and the insensitives of the superior class and towards the low caste pupils are being the challenges. And now new food habits and due to the persistence and the mixings of the people at meeting and conference seminars etc. Food habits have the changes in the occupations and mobility has becomes the new features and leaving the behinds and there the traditions roles and Brahmins and have the becomes and traders and wears vestiges and has the joined teaching and so improvement in the positions of lower caste and due to the step initiative and by the The positions of the lower caste has the improved economically as well as the socially. The following instance and highlighting the continuity and of the caste systems, competition and for the lower caste system, la caste status and to avoid of the benefits meant and for the depressed and the marginalized section of our the society by getting the reservations in various field and progressive measures of the reservations and the affirmative actions and have the sharp caste and the loyalties and instead of the liquidating themes and lingyas and movements and Karnataka's Jata movement and certain the task is done by the particular caste and murals and manuals and the scavengings and task is done only by the locals and the scavenges caste. Reasons for the changes in the caste system, legislative measures. Reason for the changes in the caste system, legislative measures. Law have to the important function and first to the reinforces social controls and second to the bringing social changes. E.g. Untouchabilities and Offences Act 1955, the SC and ST. And 1989 providing for the punishment against the practices of the untouchabilities. Untouchabilities, the Hindus Marriage Act provided for the intercaste marriages. Role of the education after independence, educational facilities were the extended to all the citizens irrespective of their the caste and which is the eroded the legitimacy of the caste system. Reforms, the movement, the socials and the religious reforms and movement have the dominated the Indian scenes and early in the 20th century in the forms of the protest and against the Brahminical and supremacy. The industrialization and urbanization produce and social the harmony heterogeneities and the secondary and the territory occupations and improved the social status, the in the ascriptives status losses it is the importance and bears today and the pupils and from the upper caste are working as the subordinate needs and of the lower caste means of the transport and the communication. They are the instrument in bringing the spirituals and mobility to pupils and travelings by bus, metro and the train cannot be the discriminated against on the basis of caste. Increase in the importance of wealth. Today wealth has the replaced and birth as the basis of the social prestigious conclusion. In this the manners and the caste system has the undergone many the charges due to the above provocations and it has the adopted to the new and socials in a economically condition in India. Question number 8. Urbanization in India is used to the have and the acceleration the process of the marginalization suggested the step to the minimize and native aspect of the urbanization. Introduction. Urbanization refers and to the population shift and from the rural and urban areas, the corresponding decrease in rural population and the way in the which societies and adapt to this the change and the adaptations and hasn't been and smooth and has led to other lack of the access and opportunities for many the pupils leading to the marginalization body. Marginalization occurs when other person or the groups of pupils are less able to do the things or access basic the services or opportunities and it is also sometimes refers to other social exclusions and how has urbanization acceleration and the marginalizations and there are the three and types of the marginalization. Social marginalization, caste-based residential and the segregations in India, the isolated and by the caste published by the IIM. Bangalore and found the 30% of the Delhi neighborhoods and 30% of the Kolkatas and 80% of the Rajkots and do not have any the Dalits and the Adivasis. A lack of the health cares and education. Urban poor are the increasingly opting for the private health care due to the insufficient public and facilities and the availabilities of the urban public health services views and the urbans and the primarily health centers and fell for the shorts of the government and above the norms by the about the 40% and across the country. The Lok Niti and CSDS and studies on the urban poor and shows and that the 8% of the school going children in slum are not the enrolled in any the schools. Economically marginalization urban the housing storage has the reasons and 54% to 29 millions in 2018 and from the 18.78 18.78 millions in 2012. 95% of the give was and for the low incomes household no incomes household according to other research papers and ICRIER over the flowings and slums and there are about the 13.7 billion Islam household in the country and the sheltering the population of the 65.49 million pupils and across the country and the ghetto more focus on the affluence areas in the urban planning and the infrastructure development and political marginalization. Lack of the political power and migrate person and make up the about 35% of the Indians urbans population according to the 2020 studies and by the National Institution of Urban Management and IUM they remains the accountable uncounted and with theirs the politicals and right practices and dissent Francis and non the exclusively welfare schemes. The benefits of the welfare scheme and for the urban poor and often rich only the small parts of the intended beneficiaries and many the such as the sex workers and transgender persons, sanitation workers and the domestic workers and face higher chances of the exclusions. Measures to the maximizing the negative impact. Employment guarantees program extending the manregas to urban areas and will create 50 million jobs and as per as the state of the working India in 2019 report by the Ajim Premji and universities improving access to the health facilities and welfare schemes accelerating efficiency of the primarily health care facilities and the Delhi and mohallas and the clinics and the territories and care the facilities aims at the providings medical facilities and densely and the populated the locality have been and the quite successful and optimum and the utilization of the urban lands and Niti Aayog in its the reforms in the urban planning capacities suggest forming other 500 healthy and cities and the programs for other period of the 5 years involving the spirituals and plannings public health and the socio-economically development remote voting for the international migrant the election commissions of India and ECI has the already and the extended the voting rights to the non and the residential Indian NRIS and the promises and the extensions of the postals and ballot voting rights and if they are the unable to travels to their consistency and this has and to be the allowed and for the international migrant to the affordables and housing the workings groups by the Niti Aayog constituted and were to the study internal and labors has the recommended and that the rentals and housing in the public sector and could be the expanded through the provisions of the dormitory and the accommodations and this would and make the public housing and the affordables and reduce the conflict between the owners and the tenants. Urbanization provide the urban and the facilities in the rural areas or the mass or make the rural areas smart and the decrease the migration to the urban areas. Infrastructure is key and to the development of the urban areas, and the government and should and explore the avenues for the increasing investment in the infrastructures and through the combination of public investment PPPs and exclusively private investment and wherever and the feasible. Conclusion: Indian cities and are on the slow and but the sure path and towards the cities crisis and of the various kind, and it is the vitals to the resources to the reverse and the current and trade of the segregations and the inequalities. To what extent it can the environmental movement and we called the social and the movement and trace its the journey and the post independent India. The environmental movement is other types of the social movements and that the involve and area of the individuals and groups and the coalitions and that the perceives a common interest in the environmental protections and act to the brings about the changes in environmental politics and the practices. Environmental movement is other social movement fight for the local rights, and thus the movement are